And welcome to the Factor Uncensored. Thank you for joining us tonight. Like those new Reebok dollars, got them on sale? We have a great show planned for you. And of course, we're going to begin with the important news here in our community and around the country. Welcome and thanks for joining us here on the Factor Uncensored. We begin with the impeachment trial of suspended Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Prosecutors want a conviction, but Paxton's lawyer, Tony Busby, says his client is totally innocent.
At the end of this, you will come to know what I know, that despite all of us being told that the evidence in this matter is 10 times worse than the public knows, it is instead 100 times less. There is nothing here to support impeachment, nothing.
Now, Paxton has pleaded not guilty to all 16 counts, and so far the Texas Senate has rejected every single one of the AG's efforts to dismiss the articles of impeachment against him. Joining me now to talk about this historical trial, University of Houston downtown professor Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld, attorney Oliver Brown, activist and professor Tony Diaz, and attorney Eric Dick. Glad to have you all here on the Factor Uncensored. So, Dr. von Biedenfeld, are you surprised at anything you heard so far today with the opening statements from the attorneys involved?
Absolutely not. And this has been a 20-year saga building. So we've had the SEC and securities violations. We've had the stolen pen in Collin County. And at a certain point, Republicans have to infight because there's all the leadership centralized. And so we've got very clear legal arguments on both sides. But one side is going to say we're absolutely innocent, 100 times innocent, and the other side is just going to focus on what, of course, Stan Phelan has been promoting since he was accused of being drunk on the floor. You know, is this political? Sure, but all the defense arguments are going to be we're completely innocent or he is guilty of all 20 charges, including the 16 articles that were actually brought forward.
And of course, Tony Diaz, what is interesting here is this was brought by the Republicans, not the Democrats in the House.
Right, and well, first, I have to say I'm a little offended, Isaiah, because you haven't created, like Paxton did for his donor, a secret burner direct contact line, and I didn't get here in a secret Uber account like his folks, like they were all saying. And to me, the real issue becomes that, because you're going to hear Busby say, he's not even using evidence. He's saying Paxton is not guilty because 4 million people voted for Paxton, so he shouldn't be removed by 30 people. 4 million Texans did not have access to any burner phone. So we're going to find out. They're going to drag this out. They're going to drag, we're going to hear all the juicy details. I didn't have access to Paxton's burner phone, I guess because I'm a Democrat. But what about the other 4 million Texans who did vote for him? Did they have that same access? And if he's let off the hook, does that mean that we're just saying, the Republicans are saying that when they rule a state, that's okay for certain citizens to have a secret line to elect a candidate, but the rest of us have to call that silly number posted on a website? And if you've ever called it, like I have, when I call Republicans, Democrats pick up the phone for me. All right? When I call Republicans, they're not there. They take a message. They get snooty. No secret phone lines for us. So this is the big deal. People should watch this, because if Republicans tolerate this, this is the government that you get under a Republican-dominated society.
And really quick, Oliver and Eric, both of you can weigh in on this. So that people can understand and so that they can care, what is he accused of that would be egregious, that would offend the average viewer at home?
Well, look, I would like to address what my esteemed colleague
But first, let's deal with the viewers and why they should care about this.
Well, you should care because it's your Attorney General. However, today was nothing more than opening statements. What was very unique about the statements that were made today by defense counsel, which is Dan Cogdell and Tony Busby, they kept saying, as he brought up the burner phones, they're like, there's going to be no evidence of a burner phone, which I found that very unique, that lawyers of this esteemed caliber are going to double down in their opening statement and say you will not see any evidence of that. If there's no evidence of that, this is going to be a hard problem for the rest of this prosecution. So I'm not convinced yet that there is a burner phone or there's these other evidence of
and Oliver, in all due respect, most people don't even know what the burner phones are about. And so that's what I'm trying to establish with you guys. So, Eric, what is he accused of doing?
A slow creep of corruption. That's kind of what that's the theme is, you know, He was basically his big donor that donated $25,000. He just went out of his way and used the office of Attorney General to help out his friend. That's basically what he's accused of. And there's all sorts of different kind of themes going along with that. I do note that the burden in this is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's going to be hard to convict him in the Senate. I also note that with this whole theme that's going on nationally with criminalization of the justice system, I don't think that it's going to be a conviction. It's going to be hard. Impeachment's going to be hard. Also, I think there's a fear of the other senators and politicians in general. If we're tolerating this and we do impeach Paxton, who's next? And I think that resonated what Busby said today. Who's going to be impeached next?
But did he get bribed or not? That's a serious question. That's really what's up.
It's a very serious question. And only thing we have today is a very bare bones 20-minute statement from the prosecution in this matter. And then the defense almost used the whole hour that they had. They left like 1 minute and 40 seconds left, right? And the defense came in and said, you're not going to see X, Y, and Z. And these are not like, you know, basic lawyers that are going to just double down on something that they cannot prove or say things that could eventually be easily proven. And that's what I'm very concerned about, that the American public needs to watch and see if they're going to actually meet their burden, and is this some type of internal politics within the Republican Party.
And did Paxton help his buddies who were in trouble? Because that's a problem, and that's really what's at stake right here. And if that's proven to the American people, we're going to watch Republicans decide if they're going to tolerate that.
But this is day one. I mean, this is, and part of, I think, what Oliver's mentioned, and Eric, at the end of the day, the burden is so high. And so we're looking at Boyd standards. Why didn't Ken Paxton have to testify today? Because the presiding officer of the Senate said, hey,
he didn't have to.
You don't have to, right? And so this burden is very high. It's not a preponderance of the evidence. It's not another legal standard. This is a very high burden. And there are a lot of protections here. And so while I think one of the key words people are looking at from a political standpoint is the impunity of the office, right? How far can I go as the chief law enforcement officer of the state where integrity of the office is paramount? And then the legal due process. So I think that's going to be a challenge, especially with so many lawyers in the House and Senate.
And when we come back, we're going to continue talking about this case. So hang in there with us. We're going to talk about Angela Paxton, if she has been pulled off of the panel where she can vote for her husband or against her husband. And is there a mistress in this whole thing? We talk about that next.
Oh, no.
It's getting juicy. It's getting juicy.
Lord Jesus, don't talk about that. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Mr. Paxton has been entrusted with great power. Unfortunately, rather than rise to the occasion, he has revealed his true character.
I believe that no matter your party affiliation, and no matter where you stand now, you will conclude what I have concluded, that there is nothing to this.
Welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Day one of the impeachment trial of Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has wrapped up. Our guests are back to talk about it here on The Factor Uncensored. So Dr. Dietrich von Biedenfeld, Paxton's wife, Angela Paxton, is a senator now. Will she get a chance to vote on the guilt or innocence or impeach or not impeach with her husband?
This is a challenge, and this has been something that's been contested. As of now, she's been sort of removed from the process, and there are conflicts of interest and nepotism aspects that are going to come into play as far as whether the Lieutenant General
that's her
allows
husband.
It. Right. But I think there's a sound argument that as a duly elected representative, she's going to be able to cast her vote on behalf of her constituents. So I think there is another legal avenue that comes into if she is not allowed to support.
We'll get to that later, Tony. But don't mix it all up.
Right. If she's not allowed to support, then are we denying the voice? And so while this is taken into account of the Boyd protections for General Paxton, there is still the consideration that this is an elected office, and the impeachment process is separate from a standard judicial process, even a grand jury.
But I note that actually, technically, her vote is being counted, even though she's not supposed to be counted, because it still requires 21 people to impeach. Even though, if you take her out, it would only be 20, she still technically is being counted. And it's kind of a back around. It doesn't reduce the amount.
And so, look on the outside looking in, Eric, and also as an attorney, do you think she should be allowed to participate in the process, even though this is her husband?
Well, and you'd think that she shouldn't be, but I think she's required to by the Constitution.
I heard that earlier,
I think she's required to. So it's bizarro. But how it's set up is basically it doesn't reduce the amount of votes it's going to take to impeach Ken Paxton. So it's kind of backhandedly, she still gets a no vote to impeach him.
All right, Tony, so here's what you have been salivating over. And of course, AG Ken Paxton's attorney, Tony Busby, brought up the name of this so-called mistress today. So what are your thoughts about that? But for those who don't understand it, explain it, lay it out. With Nate Paul, who is the benefactor.
So yeah, he had a donor who's really close to him, was a good buddy. Nate Paul, and evidently he had a really good friend that's probably a girlfriend or mistress, supposedly, that supposedly he got a job for.
We don't know it for a fact.
We don't know it for a fact. But, I mean, let's make it in terms that everyone understands. Evidently, player Paxton was helping his girlfriend possibly get a job. We're going to find out. Here's what I love, though. Here's what I love. Part of this is not really a court case, right? It's just a bunch of it's a soap opera. And the other thing is that if I was a lawyer in this situation, I would beat up Paxton so he looks incompetent and or corrupt. Because the corrupt part, Busby is already talking about trying to confuse people. He's going to look so incompetent. I'm sorry. You don't know if you bribed somebody? You don't know where the money went? Your own employees that you hired and said were stellar, they all turned on him. And now they're turning him in. So now he's got to go back and make it sound like he either can't hire these smart people. So what I'm saying is, let's forget the logic. When this is over,
let's forget logic. Let's not forget logic.
Because there's already 6 senators.
We cannot forget logic.
6 senators said that they will. 6 senators said that no matter what, they're not going to.
We cannot forget logic in this. And one of the things that the defense brought up today was that the fact that the letters that came out, they removed Ken Paxton's name for it.
It's not against the law.
Okay, it's not against the law, but it also shows a little bit of vindictiveness within his own office. I think that people that were working under him didn't like him. I don't know if this man...
But does it make a difference if these were not lower level people? These were high-ranking people, his lieutenants.
That makes a bigger deal. That you've got lieutenants removing your name from letterhead and sending out official letterhead or without his name and breaking these things out, accusing him of crimes. And what the defense is saying is, look, we're going to get into this. We're going to find out that there was a lot of bias only from the Republican side. This is not a Democrat versus Republican issue. That's what most people need to understand.
Right.
This is a Republican versus Republican issue. And so when they talk about removing names from letterhead, they're bringing up, oh, he may have had some, mistress or whatever. It sounds like they're dirtying him up the same way that they did Bill Clinton. And guess what? Bill Clinton stayed in office.
And when you think about lieutenants, though, the other aspect is these people have risen to this position because of their political nature. So this isn't the staff person who's got a 30-year career saying, I'm happy in my job. These are also people who are political aspirants.
Isaiah,
who may
if
say,
your
maybe
intern
I'm
scratches your name off your business card, you're going to throw him in jail? That's not against the law.
But you are going to fire him.
Is it a prank?
But I'm going to fire him.
It depends on what they do with that business.
I'll throw him in jail. Why not?
Where they drop it, where they give it to, what they claim.
The other thing to note that is if having an affair is an impeachable offense, the line's going to get very long. And you're going to have a lot of impeachments
Progressives
going
don't judge on
on.
Lifestyles. Progressives don't judge on lifestyle. This is a Republican thing. So,
and when you're a Republican, hey, it's one thing, but when you're a Democrat, you can't talk about what happens in closed doors. So it is.
But the distinction is illegal versus immoral, and I go back to like some of the discussions we had in 2015. I know that my history minor is showing, but where the lieutenant governor's travel was only $3,000 more for the year than the AG, and the AG was only going back and forth to his home county, which wasn't even his home county, right? He claimed residence in Travis, despite not being having to do that. But that's not illegal. And so the idea is he's entitled to a security detail, and for people to parse through that $78,000 expenditure to go back and forth to his house is more political than legal. And I think here, with a beyond a reasonable doubt standard, it's going to be very tough to prove.
If impeached, what happens?
He's going home.
Well,
and
he's
going to be
impeached.
prohibited.
Now this is a
Right,
removal.
right.
So if they find him guilty, he's removed. That's it.
Out of office.
Out of office.
And,
All right.
and
Thank you,
future
gentlemen.
office.
And then he gets appointed. Then there's an appointment from the governor of his replacement.
Got it. And then there's a securities trial and all of that after that.
All that other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.